You can't even have children. What use is a wife like that to me? I'm demanding a property division of $50,000. David never ceases to look down on me, even when pressing for divorce. Without even bothering to understand my feelings, I smirked inwardly at his attitude and handed him the divorce papers I had already filled out. "Now, are you prepared? Quite attentive for you." He snatched the divorce papers and began filling out his section with delight. The moment to end my marriage to this man has finally arrived. This realization excited me. Furthermore, I had a secret from David. How will he react once this secret comes to light? Most likely, he'll be shocked and thrown into chaos. The thought of his face at that moment brought a secret smile to my face. My name is Kelsey Saunders. I'm 36 years old. I work part-time. I live with my husband, David, and we don't have children. David used to be my boss at the company I worked for. Initially, he came off as terse and standoffish, making it difficult to approach him. However, working closely together revealed he was quite approachable and even made for an effective boss. Though we started as mere colleagues, spending more time together made us see each other differently. About a year after meeting David, we started dating. While we dated, David always prioritized me. He took me wherever I wanted to go, treated me to delicious meals, and consistently made our time together enjoyable. Moreover, David never forgot anniversaries and would always surprise me with bouquets or little unexpected moments. I was always deeply grateful to him. I really appreciate everything. Thank you always. Seeing you happy is my greatest joy. Thank you for being with me. To many, such words might seem cheesy, but I was head over heels for David. His words always made me genuinely happy. A few years later, we decided to get married. Our colleagues congratulated us, and we were on top of the world. I dreamily imagined a calm, joyous household with David. But after our wedding, I got to see David's true colors and began to regret my decision. In essence, David's temperament worsened after our marriage, making my life increasingly challenging. He became temperamental and imposed unreasonable demands on me. Why isn't dinner ready when your husband is home? You work part-time, right? Why can't you manage the house? I'm the one earning here. Don't you appreciate that? After getting married, I left my job and started a part-time job at a nearby supermarket. David wanted me to be a homemaker, but I felt mentally constrained staying home all the time. With David's understanding, I started working part-time. I'm sorry. I thought you said you'd be late today. I didn't say that, okay? Don't make assumptions. Whatever, just prepare dinner now. Seeing David's agitation, I hurriedly began preparing dinner. But I hadn't done the grocery shopping, so I had to make do with what was in the fridge. As expected, David blew up. Hey, are you kidding me? This is what you serve me? Who do you think is earning here? In the early days of our marriage, I noticed a change in David's attitude. I dismissed it as minor quirks at first. However, as time went on, I began to see a disturbing trend in his behavior. Now and then, I try to understand his true feelings, raising questions during casual conversations. But David always avoided or evaded them, never really putting my anxieties to rest. Perhaps my constant probing aggravated things, making him more distant. After numerous such exchanges, his anger intensified, and now he won't even listen to me. At first, I had no idea why his attitude changed so dramatically. But as I pondered the reasons, I began to suspect that he might be troubled by a specific issue. I suspect it has to do with a medical condition of mine. In truth, we had a bridal checkup before getting married. We wanted children, but tragically, I was diagnosed with infertility. That revelation was profoundly shocking to me. I'm so sorry, David. You wanted kids. I'm sorry I'm infertile. Choosing my words carefully, I conveyed my deep regret to him. I also told him that he might find happiness with someone else if he wished. I thought that if that would make him happy, it would be for the best. Back then, David always talked about the kind of future he envisioned if we had kids. The places he'd take them, the things he'd teach them, how he'd love to play catch if it was a boy. We often talked about building a happy family together. Knowing I crushed those dreams of his made me feel so guilty and ashamed. However, we had to accept the reality. I had to give up my dream of having a child with the man I love. I'm so sorry. Please don't worry about me. I'll respect whatever decision you make. I won't say a thing. I was bracing myself for the worst, but David's response caught me off guard. It's okay. I don't want to leave you. I'd hate that. Why? It's obvious, isn't it? I married you because I love you. Sure, I wanted kids, and we had dreams, but you being by my side was what mattered most. Even if we can't have children, I value being with you more than anything. That's why I want to be with you always. Hearing those words, I was overwhelmed with relief and burst into tears. Nothing could be more comforting than knowing I could still be with David. Are you sure? Won't you regret it? Mixed with anxiety and joy, I questioned his words. I'm sure. It's not a lie. I won't regret it. His kind voice and those words brought even more tears. But at the same time, considering the current situation, I worried that he might not truly want to be with me. If he still felt the same way as before, he wouldn't act so harshly, I thought. What should I do? I remembered the sweet and kind words David used to tell me before we were married. But were they all lies? I don't know the real reason behind David's anger, and I have no way to confirm if my infertility is the reason. It's hard to have a proper conversation with David, and every day was a struggle. However, one day, I finally got to hear from David why he had been so harsh. That day, as usual, we were arguing. Look, dishes are piling up again. Why aren't you washing them? The dirt will harden, and there's dust on the TV. Your home's so cleaned properly. I frowned slightly and retorted. It's just a glass I used a while ago. If you're so concerned about the TV dust, you could just clean it yourself. It was just one glass, and I had just cleaned the TV. It wasn't that dirty. What more does he want from me? Usually, I'd reluctantly follow his demands, but this time I couldn't help but respond. Then, watching David, he suddenly threw his bag on the floor. I was taken aback by what he said next. What's with that tone? This is why you can't have kids. Speak up when you can have kids. Well, you probably can't. What are you saying? David's words filled me with a mix of confusion and sorrow that was hard to articulate. There's no connection between my attitude and my infertility. While I knew this, I was both surprised and deeply hurt by David's words. What do you mean? That has nothing to do with this. David's statement, combined with my disbelief, made the situation even more complicated. You just need to listen to what I say. It's all your fault if you don't. Stop making me angry and don't talk back. Got it? David berated me, spitting with anger. I was so taken aback by his aggression that I couldn't muster a response, shrinking in fear. David, seemingly amused by my state, headed to his bedroom. It struck me that we started sleeping in separate rooms just a few months after our wedding. Every time I reflected on David's words, I felt engulfed in anxiety and sadness, thinking that perhaps he didn't need me. This situation marked the start of his relentless blame that everything was due to my infertility. You say you're busy because of your part-time job, but you hardly make any money. On top of that, you're infertile. You can't even manage household chores properly. What does that have to do with anything? And before we got married, you said you accepted it. My arguments were always met with David's sneers and disregard. Accepted? When did I say that? From the beginning. I always said I wanted kids, to play catch together. You said being with me was what mattered most. I never said that. Stop making things up. David never listened to me. I began to see that this was David's true nature. I regretted not seeing through him when we were dating. I couldn't believe this man was my husband. It felt like my mental state could crumble at any moment. Though I considered divorce many times, one issue held me back. I didn't have enough money to support myself. Though I worked part-time, it was tough to get by on my income alone. In reality, I was heavily reliant on David's earnings. David often reminded me, you can't even survive on your own. Without me, you're nothing. David knew that without him, it would be challenging for me to make ends meet. That's why, no matter how much he insulted me, he believed I wouldn't leave. Our relationship was so strained it barely resembled a marriage. David continued to contribute to household expenses, but he increasingly worked late and on weekends. At first, I thought it was just a busy period at work. However, the reality seemed different. Checking his pay slips, there was no overtime or weekend work recorded, and the deposited amount matched the pay slip. I first thought it might be a mistake, but both the pay slip and the deposited amount being incorrect seemed unlikely. If David's claims of overtime and weekend work were false, I grew anxious, wondering what he was doing instead. After much thought, I suspected David might be having an affair. However, I had no evidence, and I lacked the energy to investigate. Thus, I silently endured our cold relationship. Despite my compliance, David continued to berate me. I've always thought this, but you're terrible at cooking. It's honestly awful. I'm fed up with these terrible meals. In the beginning, you used to enjoy my cooking. I don't recall saying that. Is this just your imagination? Do you have any evidence? Always making things up in your favor. Stupid. That's why you can't have kids. Every hurtful comment from David wounded my spirit. Being constantly looked down upon, mocked, and belittled with references to my infertility made me hate myself. Moreover, David's behavior made me stay home more. Seeing families with children became painful, so I began to avoid going out. My life revolved only around my part-time job and shopping. I rarely saw daylight, and daily stress took its toll. My skin became pale, I looked older, and I felt like a shadow of my former cheerful self. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror recently? You look terrible. Seriously, I can't introduce you as my wife. David's words grew even more malicious, driving me further into despair. However, one day, an unexpected incident brought significant change to our married life. It was a sleepless night, hoping to fall asleep. I sat in the living room sipping warm cocoa and watching television. The clock had already struck 1 a.m. Normally I would be asleep by then, but I was indulging in some rare late-night TV time. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the front door unlocking. I assumed David had returned. Looking towards the entrance, I saw slightly inebriated David. He seemed in high spirits as if something had pleased him. But as soon as he spotted me, his cheerful expression vanished. "Why are you still awake at this hour?" "I couldn't sleep. I was watching TV." "Dick, you're so annoying. Just go to bed." With those words, he quickly headed to the bathroom. While his comment upset me, something else caught my attention. As he passed by, I noticed a fragrance, unmistakably a scent of cosmetics. This was the moment my suspicions about his infidelity solidified. Frustrated by his blatant disregard for hiding his actions, I became determined to find undeniable proof of his affair. I realized he was taking me for a fool. Reflecting on our past, David had often looked at me with contempt. His affairs, the verbal abuse, all of it had hurt me deeply. I decided to make David regret all he had done to me and then divorce him. I was willing to do whatever it took to exact my revenge. All I wanted was to get away from David. From that day on, I meticulously searched every corner of our home. I sneaked into David's room, scrutinizing his closet and bookshelves. I also found an old smartphone he used and checked its data. However, there wasn't a shred of evidence supporting his infidelity. Just as I was about to give up, a suit pocket in the closet caught my eye. There might be some receipt or something inside. As I felt the pockets of several suits, I touched something solid. Nervously, I pulled it out. It was a high-end lipstick, clearly not something David would own. The likelihood of it ending up in his pocket by accident was slim. It was most likely left by the woman he was seeing. Finally, I had a piece of evidence. Though I had combed through almost everything, gathering more proof on my own felt challenging. I contemplated consulting a detective agency, but I couldn't afford it. After much thought, I decided to confide in a close friend from my part-time job. I had always been hesitant to share my issues with David, especially when my colleagues joyfully discussed their family life. I didn't want to dampen the mood, but I chose to confide in my closest colleague, Tammy. "Tammy, I have something challenging to talk about. Can you listen?" "What happened, Kelsey?" The day after finding the lipstick, I opened up to Tammy about David. Tammy always radiated happiness when talking about her family. "Actually, it's about my husband. I've had suspicions for a while now, and I think he might be having an affair." "What? Is he really? Do you have any proof?" I divulged everything to Tammy, from the emotional abuse to our current situation. While she had seen a photo of David, I had never shared details about our relationship. I was anxious about her reaction. After listening, Tammy pondered for a moment and slowly began speaking. "Look, Kelsey, please don't be mad, okay? First, I've withheld something from you. I wasn't sure whether to tell you, but I have a secret concerning you." "What's with the formality? What secret?" "A secret." I was engulfed in a mix of astonishment and suspicion. Could it be that Tammy was David's mistress? As I braced myself, Tammy revealed something beyond my wildest imagination. Tammy said, "The thing is, Kelsey, I saw David, your husband, right? I saw David walking hand in hand with another woman recently. I took a picture just in case because I wasn't sure about the state of your relationship with him. and how he behaves at home. I was afraid to tell you because I didn't want to ruin your relationship if things were good between you two. Tammy showed me a picture on her smartphone, and it clearly showed David with a woman I didn't recognize. That's David. Yeah, I thought so. Do you know this woman? The atmosphere grew tense. This was more than enough evidence of his infidelity. Also, I took a few more pictures. After I saw them, I got curious and followed them. I even got a picture of them entering a hotel. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, especially since you're going through such a hard time. It's okay, Tammy. I hadn't confided in anyone. It's not your fault. I'm grateful. Thank you for telling me. It's confirmed now. Tammy handed over the photos, which Kelsey examined multiple times. Every time she looked, it was undeniably David in those photos. Thank you for the photos. If you need any help or advice in the future, just let me know. I'm here for you. I was overwhelmed with gratitude that I had such a reliable friend nearby. I thanked Tammy again, left work, and began my journey home. On my way, I stopped by the city office and picked up divorce papers. Now, all that remained was to confront David with the divorce papers and get his signature. However, I was uncertain about the right timing. Although I was determined to divorce, my fear of David's reaction remained. I didn't know how he would react to the divorce news. While contemplating and holding the divorce papers, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed my father's name. It was rare for him to call, so I answered immediately. Hello, it's me. What's up? It's been a while, Kelsey. How have you been? I have something to discuss. What is it? It's unusual for you to call. Sorry to surprise you like this. The thing is, I've decided to hand over my assets to you. What are you talking about? Why all of a sudden? My parents used to run a successful company and had accumulated a significant amount of wealth. They had mentioned in the past that the assets would eventually be mine. I want to settle things while I'm still healthy. That's unexpected. After consulting experts, they estimated the assets to be around $11 million. What? $11 million? It was an unbelievable sum. I knew the business was doing well, but I had never imagined such a vast amount. Are you seriously going to give all of that to me? Of course. I can't take it to my grave. When can you come over? We need to start the paperwork. As I looked at my calendar, an idea struck me. I should inherit my parents' assets after the divorce. That way, the property division would be smooth. If I inherited before the divorce, David might claim a share of the assets as communal property. I had never discussed my parents' wealth or business with David, so the divorce proceedings might conclude quickly. I confided in my father about my decision to divorce David. I see. You're parting ways with David. Well, if that's your decision, I won't interfere. Always remember, we're on your side. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Our home is always open to you. Thank you, Dad. With my father's support, I decided to tell David today that I want a divorce. No matter what happens, I have reliable allies by my side. Everything will be okay. Several hours had passed since my call with my father, and it was already past 11 p.m. David returned home, humming cheerfully and in a notably good mood as he opened the living room door. Yo, you're back early. Welcome home. It's not midnight yet. Without a word, David abruptly threw his bag and coat onto the sofa. I've been thinking. I want a divorce. Divorce? Oh, to my surprise, David was the one to bring up the subject. Honestly, why should I have a wife who can't even have kids? So useless. I'm demanding a property division of $50,000. I've often heard the term useless from him, but demanding a property division wasn't foreseen. If anything, I should be the one demanding it. Taken aback by David's words, my feelings towards him quickly cooled. I handed him the filled-out divorce papers from the table. Fine, here are the divorce papers. I've already filled out my part. Del, you're all prepared, aren't you? Well organized. Grinning widely, David quickly filled in his part of the papers. All right, finally free from you. So happy. Is that so? David flashed a rare smile. The next day, I submitted the divorce papers and immediately headed to my parents' home. Though there was some distance between my parents' place and my part-time job, it was manageable. Wrapped in a feeling of safety, I decided to stay with my parents for a while. The reunion with my parents was heartwarming, and their familiar warmth comforted me. Are you all right? You look exhausted and pale. Do I? A lot has happened. I understand. Take it easy. You don't need to overwork yourself. Thank you, Mom. The time spent at my parents' place felt special. Touched by my parents' kindness, I decided to rest for a while. 2 days later, when I returned from my part-time job and checked my smartphone, I noticed a slew of missed calls. Checking the call history, there were over 30 missed calls. All of them were from David. With almost a call every 5 minutes, it felt disturbing. After all the insults he hurled at me over the years, I couldn't understand why he'd call so frequently. Perhaps he wanted to continue berating me over the phone even after our breakup. Resolving to ignore him and about to put away my smartphone, another call from David came through. Hello, what is it? Kelsey, please, can you come back home? Why? Having issues with your mistress? What? How did you know? David seemed to think I hadn't discovered his affair yet. His reaction made it hard for me to suppress my laughter. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? If you knew, then what do you want to do? She's so incompetent. Doesn't do housework, can't cook. And ever since we started living together, she's been so selfish. What should I do? That's not my problem. What are you even talking about? It's creepy. Without apologizing for his affair, David begged me to return. We've been together for so many years. Shouldn't a couple support each other during times like this? Excuse me? We're not a couple anymore. We've divorced. And after all the times you belittled me, especially about infertility, now you're turning the tables because your mistress isn't what you expected? What a joke. Over the phone, I unleashed all the emotions I had bottled up inside. Even though you said you wanted to be with me, you get angry just because we can't have children? What's that about? Explain why you cheated and belittled me all this time. Come on, answer me. Well, that's what happened. Lost for words. Where's that domineering attitude now? Well, the thing is, you have nothing to say. Truly a pathetic man. I was a fool not to see this before our marriage. Oh, and I'll be seeking property division later on. Remember that? Mentioning property division, David's demeanor changed instantly. Property division? There's no reason for you to claim it. If you let people speak, they get carried away. You can't even live on your own, can you? Without my support and money, you can't do anything. Can't live on my own? No money. Can't live without you. David's reaction to money may indicate that he is in a tight financial spot. I have assets and I'm not struggling financially at the moment. Considering we're already divorced, maybe I should spill it all. Thinking about this, I decided to inform David of the reality. Listen, David, you don't need to worry about me not being able to live on my own or not having money. I've inherited assets from my parents, approximately $11 million. So you can rest assured. What? $11 million? I thought about telling you before the divorce, but I was wary of the property division with you. That's why, after discussing it with my parents, I decided to inherit it after the divorce. What the hell? Hold on. I've never heard about these assets before. Of course not. I never told you. Even over the phone, I could tell David was dumbfounded by the revelation. Wait, I didn't know. He kept repeating himself in a near incoherent manner. Should we wrap this up? We're divorced, meaning we don't share anything anymore. You don't need to be concerned about my money or my life. Just wait for a call from my attorney. Hey, wait. David might have wanted to say something else, but I had nothing more to share. I ended the call and set my phone aside. Afterward, I instructed my lawyer to claim property division from David. Though I lacked evidence of his verbal abuse, I managed to receive a significant amount for the infidelity. I wasn't privy to David's current situation, but I heard he appeared quite worn out when visiting the attorney's office. Perhaps he's struggling, finding it difficult to make ends meet and pay the claimed amount. While I didn't wish to pry into David's feelings, recalling his mistreatment made me hope he would struggle a bit. I quit my part-time job and started working as a temp at a company within commuting distance from my parents' home. I changed jobs because David knew where I used to work, and I wasn't sure what he might do. When I resigned, my friend Tammy told me, if you ever need help, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be there for you, which was incredibly encouraging. Despite the years of being controlled and manipulated by David, I've decided to live my life on my terms. Firstly, I plan to excel at my new job, save money, and take my family and Tammy on a wonderful trip. Each day, as I think about these enjoyable prospects, I give my all to my work,